retaliation, and hopefully the retaliation will come back with voters seeing that this Democratic City Council body has not been a friend to the African community. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your call. How would you respond to that?
Well, there are a couple of issues that she brought up. Connie, I want to say that if you've been following the city council, which it sounds like you have, we've questioned policies and we've questioned practices when they've come to our attention. We don't make policy for the police department. We do pass ordinances, and when we find that there is a practice that is questionable, we have brought the police department, any of the departments who have questionable practices that we want to find out more information on, we bring them to council and ask them questions. Two of us on city council held a press conference with various members of the community regarding the policy immediately after the mayor had chosen Chief Ward to represent the police department in its highest office. And we wanted to bring to light that we are still interested in finding out the truth about these policies. I do want to say, I don't believe that there's hate in anybody's hearts. I don't believe that, the police department is, after a particular segment of the community because there's hate involved. I do believe that they are trying to reduce crime in the most crime-ridden neighborhoods. And unfortunately, a lot of the crime-ridden neighborhoods in the city of Tampa are in areas of color. It's a socioeconomic factor, but it's not because they hate a particular segment of the community.
Do you think that what the police are doing, at least in what the Times investigation has found, is reducing crime by giving 2,500 citations, 80% of them to black people?
I think the policy needs to be changed. I think that you're right, that it is a disproportionate number of people. When I talk about bicycle safety, and I talk about bicycle safety a lot, I sit on 6 different transportation committees and agencies throughout Hillsborough County. It's a matter of safety for me because I live right near Busch Gardens, and I have, on my way home at night, witnessed far too many near collisions of cars and bicycles. And it's because people on bicycles dart across the street. I'm sure if you're a driver anywhere in the city of Tampa or anywhere, that WMNF reaches, you'll have experienced at some point in time a bicyclist dart out in front of you. So, I think that happens not only in my neighborhood or in the Busch Gardens area, but it happens everywhere across the city. And I think that citations should be given out to people across the city, no matter where they are. If they're irresponsibly operating a bicycle, it's putting people's life in danger, and most likely it's the bicyclist whose life is going to be lost.
So notwithstanding the safety element, which I think that people can definitely grasp, when you issue a citation to someone who's from a poor neighborhood, that might not be the best way to handle things because they often are associated with a cost, or maybe it could even escalate. And there's some indication in the Tampa Bay Times findings that this was almost a way where police could have I don't want to put words in the mouth, but have an excuse to stop people in the poor communities and in the black communities who, and as a way to stop them and then search for drugs or stolen items.
Well, one of the things we talked about when Chief Ward appeared before City Council was the unintended consequences of some of the folks that the Times had interviewed. And that was, one comes to mind is a young man who hadn't realized that he had an outstanding payment due. And when he went to go get his driver's license, it affected his ability to get a driver's license. And much in the way that we have, or not we, City Council, but Hillsborough County Commission has changed some of the policies having to do with juvenile justice and, their citation program. civil citation program has helped to alleviate that, much in the way that, we did as a city ask for the cooperation of the judicial system here to set up a separate court for homeless people. I think that those folks who are receiving those citations need to be handled in somewhat of a different manner, so that it doesn't have the unintended consequence later on when they're not able to pay a citation. I don't think that someone should have maybe a layered problem. First was the citation, second, the inability to pay the citation, or thirdly, the ability to even appear in court to protest the citation. Because you know that as a driver, if you get a citation as a driver and you show up in court and you protest that ticket, then maybe your fines might be reduced, or, it might be, adjudication withheld, but you have to have the ability to show up in court. That means taking time off from work and being able to go downtown. So, I think there are sometimes disproportionate opportunities for people with a better socioeconomic background than there are for those without. And I use that so that we're not talking about color, because and we can't look at the statistics of how many people are cited without talking about how many white people are cited or how many Hispanic people are cited. And honestly, I've seen the numbers for the African American community, but I haven't seen other, minority numbers. Are there people who are Latino in West Tampa getting tickets? I don't know. I don't think anybody has segmented those numbers out.
Your point is taken, but I think that the fact that the 80% or 79%, they're going to the 25% of the population that's black, I think that number stands out so much that I think that's why people are commenting on that, because it's such a surprising number. Mm-hmm. Our guest is Tampa City Council member Lisa Montelione. We'd like you to join the conversation. 813-239-9663. You can email us at dj@wmnf.org or text us at 813-433-0885. We've had Mike in Sarasota on the air. Hi, Mike. Great. How are you?
I'm the Inspector Florida Walks and Bikes. And what we are a policy focus group. We work on the state levels for the rights of bicyclists and pedestrians. And I've been following this pretty much relevant. But what I would like to say, my main point is, I think this whole protest is much ado about nothing. I don't think it has anything to do with bicycling. I don't think it has anything to do with racism. If you read the report, if you read the quote from Chief Pastor, what she said, the proportion of black arrestees, no, they were targeting street crime. That's what they're.
Mike, can I get you to back up a little bit? You're breaking up, and I think we missed what you said. The first point you made about what the report said from Chief Castor.
Okay, I'm sorry. What Chief Castor said was that this whole police effort was about targeting street crime in a specific neighborhood. It turned out that it was a black neighborhood. So when you have a particular task force where you're targeting street crime in a black neighborhood, you will get black arrestees. Had they done it in a white neighborhood, let's say that they've been targeting financial crime, they would probably have gotten white males between the ages of 50 and 70. Or if they've been targeting motorcycle gang activity in some area, they would have probably gotten between 20 and 40. Different task forces on different crimes tend to net people from different demographic groups. So in this case, what they did was targeted. Maybe we could have done it by targeting other behaviors, but I myself have personally witnessed. I live in Sarasota, and I've seen crack dealers operate on the streets in neighborhoods, and they do have bicycle messengers who are associated. You'll see the guys on the corner, and then you'll see guys on bikes riding around them, which are part of it, and have lookouts. So I don't think it was such a bad target to go after street crime. I think it was actually a clever strategy. Now, as it turns out, according to this 20% of the people that they detained had other issues. They had outstanding, so there was other criminal activity associated with them, which is probably a pretty high figure. That's probably better than if you just say arrest.
Mike, thanks for making those points. I'm gonna cut you off there though, because of your phone is not very clear. So I appreciate you making those points. Councilmember Montelione, do you have something to respond about that?
Well, that's pretty much in line with, he stated what the position of Tampa Police Department has been, and, you know, logically speaking, it makes sense. He's right. If you were to target white collar crime, meaning, you know, computer crimes or financial theft, embezzlement, you know, major company fraud, you know, those kinds of things, you are going to reap a wealth of white males, and it's about, you know, targeting the crime, not targeting the population. So I don't think that when they go after you know, check fraud and embezzlement in large corporations, I don't think they're going after the segment of population that is white and is male. They're going after people who are embezzling money from the companies they work for.
Well, I think that point, while true, I think that some of the criticisms I've heard of this is exactly that, is, well, why were they focusing on one particular type of crime in one type of neighborhood, and that was going to target? It turns out it targeted black people in these poor neighborhoods, and I think that that's one of the criticisms, is why is that the
but
focus?
if you've seen the news lately, we've had how many murders take place? How many young black men have lost their life? There was just a heart-wrenching article about EJ that was in the paper this Sunday. There's a point at which you have to try and stem the amount of crime that is happening to one segment of the population. So if you live, or I lived, in that neighborhood where all of these all the gun violence was happening, wouldn't you want the police to come in and do something? There's been mothers and aunties and pastors on TV begging people to stop the violence. I participated in the march in Sulphur Springs, the Stop the Violence March. You know, you have to ask the police department to come in and give myself and my children and my grandchildren a place to live and be safe and play out in the street without fear of being hit by a bullet.
813-239-9663 or dj@wmnf.org. If you'd like to join this conversation, we have Reverend McKenzie on hold. Reverend McKenzie, you're on the air.
Crime in any poverty-stricken neighborhood or low socioeconomic neighborhoods. And there are things we can do to address those issues, but they're not quick fixes. They involve resources. They involve extending ourselves beyond what we would consider reasonable, sometimes normative terms. I think Bob Buckhorn and his policy to extend opportunities for young people to engage in recreational activity is a very, very small effort in the right direction. But there are much deeper maladies in those communities, and I don't think ticketing people on bicycles addresses the underlying problems. And I don't think it's happenstance that you find that this pattern is repeated across the country. This is not just happening in Tampa. You find the same thing in New York City. You find the same thing in San Francisco. And for the caller who called in earlier, if you did this in another community, we'll do it in another community. Let's see what the results will be from it. And I think there are other ways of dealing with the bicycle traffic that may include people who are engaged in less than honorable activities. But the number of citations issued in that particular community, I think, begs for a greater explanation, and I think the problems there call for deeper solutions than just handing out tickets.
All right, thank you for that call, Reverend McKenzie. Lisa, your response.
Oh, I have great respect for Reverend McKenzie, and I think he's right that there is a deeper rooted problem, and it requires a multi-layered approach. Is, the ticketing bicycles the approach to ending the problems that plague some of these communities? Absolutely not. Is it a way to, detect whether or not there's someone dealing drugs and conducting transactions on the street corner who happens to be in a bicycle? I mean, I've witnessed transactions occur that way. I've witnessed transactions occur out of a car window. I mean, one morning when I was on my way to work 3 blocks from my house, I'm pulling out to Bush Boulevard, and there's a transaction taking place at 7:30 in the morning. But it's only one way, and there's a lot of approaches that have to be put into play. That's why I was with my colleague, Councilman Reddick, at that conference, that press conference that day, because do I believe that ticketing bicyclists is the best way to approach the crime problem in those communities? No, I don't think it is. I don't think it's the only way. If it's one of the police strategies to identify people who don't belong in that neighborhood and they happen to be on bicycles, they're going to get stopped. When I met with Chief Ward right after that press conference, it was I think a day later, maybe 2, and talked to him about this. He said, my officers know the people in their neighborhoods. That's the whole reason, for the different districts and for getting the substations out into the community and the community policing tactics and strategies. My officers know those people. So if there's a guy on a bike who's circling the block, and we know that Mary, Smith is at work during the day, or maybe she works the night shift and she's working at night and there's nobody home, and this bicyclist keeps circling the block, and we know he's not one of the neighborhood kids, we're going to stop him. And, we know that, we can tell he's case in the house. So is the strategy that Mayor Buckhorn put in place of having the recreation center opened in coordination with Hillsborough County Schools, great idea. Again, is that the only method to approach the problem? No. We need a lot of the community to step up and police themselves, or to seek out services that are offered, or to band together as a community. I remember back in the day when Chloe Coney used to march the streets at night, driving out the drugs and driving out the prostitutes in East Tampa, and it was the community coming together and staging those marches. It wasn't like what I marched in Sulphur Springs with the End Violence. That was arranged by the police department, in conjunction with one of the churches in the community. But it wasn't a grassroots people come together and protest in the streets in the way that Chloe had done it back in the early 80s. And that's what we're going to need. We need the community to stand up for itself, and not rely on the police to come in and fix every problem.
Well, let's remind people why we're talking about this today, and that's because there's a problem that's perceived, at least in the community, that too many black people are getting pulled over and cited for bicycle violations, and so the Department of Justice is looking into it, and the Department of Justice's Office of Community-Oriented Policing Services, or COPS, and the Virginia Center for Policing Innovation will hold a community listening session tomorrow evening, that's Tuesday, from 6 until 8 in the evening at the Hillsborough Community College Ybor Campus Main Stage Theater in the Performing Arts Building. So that's from 6 to 8 tomorrow night, and you can also look at the Tampa Bay Times